Welcome back, guys. Before we start, please make sure to like, subscribe, and share this video with your friends and family. Also, can you please tell me from where you're watching? Thanks. So this happened in October of 2023. I had just turned 22, and after months of barely scraping by, I finally landed a decent job working remote. To celebrate, I planned a weekend trip with my younger brother, Eli, and my best friend Maya. Nothing fancy, just a quiet spot where we could unplug and chill for a couple days. We booked this old house through a rental site, a 2-story farmhouse near a town called Deer Hollow, tucked deep in the hills of Vermont. The pictures made it look kind of charming. Faded white paint, forest green shutters, wraparound porch, giant trees everywhere. It had that cozy but a little haunted vibe. We joked about it being haunted, but honestly, it just looked peaceful. We got there late Friday afternoon. The air smelled like pine and rain, and the wind kept blowing leaves across the gravel driveway. There was a rusted mailbox with the name Roth, barely visible under layers of chipped paint. No one greeted us. The key was in a lockbox, and there was a note on the dining table that said, "Enjoy your stay. Please do not go into the basement." That was it. No name, no phone number. The inside smelled like old paper and cinnamon. Not a bad smell, just aged. The living room had one of those stone fireplaces, and the kitchen looked recently updated. New fridge, working stove, even a smart speaker on the counter. But everything else had that antique feel. Worn wallpaper, crooked picture frames, and furniture that looked older than all of us combined. The bedrooms were upstairs. I picked the one at the far end of the hall. It had a big window overlooking the woods. Eli took the middle room, and Maya picked the one across from mine. That first night we made tacos, played card games, and watched a horror movie, of course. Typical stuff. By midnight we were all wiped out. We said goodnight and headed up. I remember waking up at some point, had to be around 3 a.m. My room was freezing, like breath in the air cold. I sat up, pulled my blanket tighter, and figured maybe I'd left the window cracked. I walked over, but it was shut and locked. That's when I heard it, a soft, shaky breath. Not mine. It sounded like it was coming from behind me. I whipped around. Nothing. No one. Just the sound of the trees swaying outside and the old house creaking like it had lungs of its own. I climbed back into bed, heart pounding, but eventually drifted off. And then I had this dream. In the dream, I was lying in bed, same position, same room, except I couldn't move. I was frozen. I could feel pressure near my feet like someone was sitting there. I couldn't see her face, but there was a woman. She wore a gray shawl, thin and patterned like lace, and her hair was long and tangled. She leaned over me and her mouth moved, but her voice didn't come from her lips, it came from all around me. She whispered something I didn't understand. It was like hearing a voice underwater. Then I woke up gasping, completely drenched in sweat. My phone said 4:06 a.m. The lamp beside my bed was off. I was sure I'd left it on. I turned it back on, looked around the room, nothing out of place. Still, I felt watched. I sat up until the sun started to rise. The next morning, I dragged myself downstairs, exhausted. My back hurt, my head felt fuzzy, and the kitchen felt too quiet. Eli was already at the table, scrolling on his phone, looking pale. Maya was leaning against the counter, holding a mug of coffee like it was her lifeline. No one said much until we sat down to eat. Then Maya goes, "I had the weirdest dream last night." Eli and I froze. She described a woman in gray, sitting at the foot of her bed, whispering something she couldn't make out. Eli dropped his fork. "She was in my room too," he said, "but I wasn't asleep. I saw her, just standing in the corner watching me. She didn't blink. I felt sick. We all just sat there staring at each other." Maya finally said, "Do you think the house is, I don't know, doing something?" That afternoon we checked everything, windows, closets, under the beds. We even tried the basement door, but it was locked with a heavy chain. I thought about that note. Please do not go into the basement. Something about that wording bugged me. Not stay out, not do not enter, yeah, but please. That night we decided not to sleep upstairs. We dragged our blankets, pillows, and sleeping bags into the living room. It felt newer down there, brighter, less off. We kept the lights on. We left the fire going. It helped a little. None of us wanted to fall asleep, but we did. Eventually. And the woman came back. I woke up suddenly, no sound, no warning. Just a jolt in my chest like someone had yelled at me inside a dream. The fire had burned low and the lamp flickered once like a bulb about to die. I sat up. Something felt wrong. Eli was sitting up too, pressed against the far wall. His eyes were wide. Maya was lying on her side, breathing fast, twitching like she was dreaming hard. I asked Eli if he was okay. He just whispered, "She's here." Then Maya sat up with a gasp. She was standing in the hallway, she said, pointing to the arch that led to the stairs. She walked past. I thought she was going to the kitchen, but she turned and looked at me. And then she whispered in my ear, but she wasn't even close. And what did she say? I asked. Maya's voice dropped. "I'll stay with you even after you forget me, always." I didn't sleep again that night. The next morning, we packed up everything and left before the sun even cleared the trees. When I got home, I did what any normal person would do. I Googled the house. Couldn't find much. Just that it was built in the 1800s and had changed owners a dozen times in the past decade. No one ever stayed long. I went down a rabbit hole, forums, Reddit threads, ghost stories, and I found something weird. People talking about shared dreams in old houses. Specific dreams. A woman in gray, sitting at the foot of the bed, whispering. Some people called her the Forgotten, others called her the Visitor. But no one knew what she wanted. A few nights later, Maya texted me at 2:13 a.m. Maya, "She's back." Me, "What?" Maya, "She was in my room." This time she wasn't sitting. She was by the window, watching something in the trees. I stared at the message for a long time. I didn't know what to say. Eli and I haven't talked about it since. He avoids the topic completely. Won't even say the word Vermont. As for me, I haven't stayed in another rental since, and I never ever ignore basement doors anymore. This happened in October 2022, right after I finished my first semester teaching at a small school in Ashwood, Oregon. My sister, Lena, suggested I take a break before things picked up again. She even offered to lend me money if I wanted to get away for a few days. I didn't need the money, but the offer pushed me to actually book something. I decided to take a solo trip down to Waverly, a beach town about 6 hours south. I found this cute little Airbnb that looked perfect. It was listed as a cozy 2-bedroom apartment in a peaceful neighborhood, and it wasn't too far from the beach. The pictures made it look clean and quiet. It had a small kitchen, a little balcony, and a tiny living room with a worn-in couch. The price was a little low for the area, which made me nervous at first, but the reviews were glowing. Everyone said it was quiet, private, and exactly like the photos. So I booked it for 4 days without thinking too hard. I didn't notice anything weird in the listing, except it barely mentioned the second bedroom. It just said additional room available. I got there around 4 p.m. on a Thursday. The host, a guy named Mark, messaged me the code to the lockbox. The building was this older-looking duplex, kind of faded yellow with overgrown ivy crawling up one side. It wasn't ugly, but it had that vibe like it had been forgotten for a while. The inside was small but mostly clean. The couch had some stains, the rug smelled faintly of mildew, and the walls had weird little cracks near the baseboards. But overall it felt livable. I noticed the main bedroom had a neatly made bed, fresh towels, and a little note on the pillow that said, "Welcome, enjoy your stay," with a smiley face. Then I peeked into the second room. There wasn't a bed, just an air mattress leaned against the far wall and a bunch of plastic storage bins stacked in one corner. The air in that room felt colder than the rest of the apartment. Not like a breeze, more like the air had been sitting still for too long. I got goosebumps standing in there for no reason. I shut the door and figured I wouldn't need to go in there again. That first night was normal. I walked to a nearby store, grabbed some microwave food, and watched a movie on my laptop. I texted Lena a picture of the balcony view. "Might come back here in the spring," I wrote. The weird stuff didn't start until the next night. I spent Friday exploring Waverly. I walked along the boardwalk, had coffee in a little bookstore cafe, and came back around 8 p.m. I made pasta, watched something dumb online, and turned off the lights at 10. At around 12:30 a.m., I heard keys rattling in the front door. Not the kind of rattling from the wind or bad wiring. This was the very real, unmistakable sound of someone trying to unlock the door. I froze. My heart started racing. I sat up in bed and stared at the door through the open bedroom. Then, the knob turned, the door creaked open. Slowly. Like someone was trying not to make noise, but failing. A man stepped inside. He looked to be in his late 20s, skinny, dark circles under his eyes. He didn't look surprised to see me, not at all. Like he'd expected me. He just gave this awkward smile and said, "Hey, I'm Kyle. I sleep on the couch sometimes." My voice got stuck in my throat. I didn't say anything. I just stared. He dropped a beat-up backpack by the door, kicked off his shoes, and walked casually into the kitchen like this was totally normal. The host hadn't mentioned anyone else staying here. No shared space. No roommates. Nothing. Kyle poured himself a glass of water, glanced at me, and said, "Don't worry. I'll be out before noon." Then he walked into the second bedroom, the one I'd written off as storage, and shut the door behind him. I sat there for hours. I kept checking the listing. It said entire place. There was no mention of Kyle or anyone else. I didn't sleep. Around 4 a.m., I grabbed the chair from the kitchen and jammed it under the bedroom door handle. Then I moved to the couch and just sat there wrapped in a blanket, staring at the second bedroom door. It never opened. Not once. By morning, I still didn't know what to do. Kyle hadn't come out. No noise, no movement. I thought maybe I imagined it. But the backpack was there by the door, and there was a half-empty glass on the counter. I debated messaging the host, but I didn't want to sound paranoid. I kept thinking maybe this was some mistake. Maybe Kyle had the wrong apartment at 9 a.m. I started looking for nearby hotels. I didn't want to be there another night. By 9:30, I was outside, sitting on this short concrete wall by the parking lot. The morning fog hadn't lifted yet, and everything felt damp and quiet, like the town was still asleep. I thought about calling Airbnb, but what would I even say? A guy showed up in the middle of the night and said he sleeps here sometimes. It sounded like a weird joke. At 10 a.m., I finally messaged the host. I asked, "Hey, does anyone else have access to the apartment?" A man came in late last night and went into the second bedroom. I didn't accuse him of anything. I kept it casual. No reply. Around 11 CU, I crept back inside to get my charger and some clothes. The second bedroom door was still closed. I tiptoed around the apartment like I was trying not to wake something up. I didn't even breathe normally. Then I heard the door creak open behind me. Kyle stepped out. He looked even more tired than the night before. His hair was messy, his shirt wrinkled. He glanced at me, nodded once, and walked straight into the bathroom. While he was in there, I peeked at the couch. It was untouched. No pillow, no blanket. No sign he'd slept there at all. When he came out, I asked quietly, "Does Mark know you're here?" He just smiled. Not a kind smile. More like he thought I was funny. He didn't say a word. Just opened the front door and walked out. I ran to the door and locked it. Double-locked it. Then I dragged the little table in front of it and stood there, breathing like I'd just run a mile. A few minutes later, I got a message from the host. "Oh yeah, that's Kyle. He sometimes crashes there when I'm out of town. He's harmless. Don't worry." I stared at the screen for a long time. I texted back. I didn't agree to share this space, especially not with someone who comes in unannounced in the middle of the night. He never replied. I packed everything and left within the hour. That night I stayed at a hotel 2 blocks away. Clean sheets, deadbolts, bright lights. I couldn't stop thinking about it though. What if I hadn't woken up? What if he hadn't gone into the second room? Airbnb eventually gave me a refund. The listing disappeared a couple of weeks later. But every once in a while I'd still check out of curiosity. And then I saw it. Same host. New listing. Different apartments, but the reviews, they mentioned someone named Kyle, still crashing in the second room. It was October 2023 when my cousin Drew and I decided we needed a break. Not a vacation with beaches and drinks, just a few days off-grid, away from work and noise. Drew's a graphic designer. I'm a barista/photographer. We're both usually glued to screens, so when I found a cheap Airbnb in this weird little town called Stillwater, about 3 hours from San Diego, we jumped on it. It sounded peaceful. Desert air, quiet nights, no tourists. The kind of place that makes your brain slow down a little. Or at least that's what we hoped for. We got there just after sunset. Stillwater looked like it had been forgotten. Maybe 20 buildings in total. Most were faded houses with broken fences and windows covered in grime. There was one gas station, one sad little grocery store, and nothing else. The wind barely moved. Everything felt stuck. As we pulled up to the house, a group of guys leaned against a rusty truck across the road. They didn't wave, didn't nod, just stared like we were animals at a zoo. I remember laughing nervously and saying, "Guess small towns aren't used to strangers." But deep down it already felt wrong. The house looked fine from the outside, plain, beige, quiet. But as soon as we walked in, it smelled stale, like dust and something older. We dumped our bags and walked to the store for supplies. Inside, the woman at the register didn't say a word. No greeting, no smile. She scanned everything in silence while a man in the back leaned against a shelf, arms crossed, just watching us like we were the ones being sold. When Drew tried to joke about the heat, she blinked at him. That was it. On our walk back, I noticed a pickup behind us. It drove slowly, too slow, matching our steps. It didn't pass. It just crept behind us all the way to the house and peeled off only when we stepped onto the porch. Drew didn't say anything, but he locked the door as soon as we got inside. I noticed he double-checked the windows, too. We didn't say we were scared. We just knew. The next day, we went to the store again, hoping it had just been a weird first impression. Nope. Same frozen silence. Same dead eyes from the cashier. The same guy still standing there in the corner, watching. When we got back to the car, Drew froze. There was a long, deep scratch running from the front tire to the back bumper. Not there yesterday. I was about to say something when he pulled a folded piece of paper from under the windshield wiper. Black marker, thick letters. Go back. We both looked up at the house across the street and saw a curtain shift. Like someone had just pulled away from it. We didn't even talk. We just went inside. The Wi-Fi didn't work. It was supposed to be high speed, according to the Airbnb listing. The router lights were on, but no network showed up. Our phone said there was no service. The TV didn't work either. All it showed was a loading screen and a connection error. We tried everything, restarting, unplugging, scanning for signals. Nothing. It was like someone had cut us off from the world. We couldn't even call for help if we wanted to. Around 5 p.m., there was a knock at the door. Drew peeked through the peephole. No one there. He opened the door slowly, stepped out onto the porch. Nothing. No footprints. No sound. Just that dry, still air. We locked everything after that. I didn't speak much. I stayed in the bedroom. Drew sat on the couch with the lights off. That night dragged. Every sound made us jump. A creak here. A thump there. Probably the house settling, right? The next morning, we walked to the host's address. It was listed in our check-in email, only 5 blocks away. His house was plain, low to the ground with gravel crunching under our feet. He came out before we even knocked. Just stood there on the porch like he'd been waiting. Drew explained everything, the note, the Wi-Fi, the scratch. The man listened, didn't nod, didn't react much. When Drew finished, the host just said, "The Wi-Fi should be working," and turned back toward his door. That was it. We walked back in silence. As we reached the corner, another truck rolled by slow. The driver didn't wave. He didn't even blink, just watched us as he passed. His face was blank, but his eyes, something about them made my stomach twist. When we got back, the Wi-Fi still didn't work. Neither did the phones. We didn't sleep that night. By morning, we had our bags packed before the sun was up. We had booked 3 nights. We only stayed 2. I left the note, "Go back," on the table. As we drove away, I looked in the rearview mirror. Curtains moved in several windows. Not people, just curtains shifting like we were being watched. But no one wanted to be seen. About 15 minutes down the highway, our phones lit up. Full bars, just like that. We didn't call the host. We didn't leave a review. We didn't talk about it, we just knew. We weren't welcome in Stillwater. The power wasn't the only thing off earlier that same year. My friend Michelle took her son Mason and his cousin Elijah on a quick weekend trip. Just a little escape into the hills near Cedar Pines, about an hour and a half outside of town. Michelle's a nurse, so her schedule's always packed. She needed the break. The boys, both under 13, wanted a weekend with no homework and no phones. So she booked a cozy-looking Airbnb in what looked like a quiet neighborhood surrounded by trees. They got there around midnight. Michelle had just finished a shift and was exhausted. The boys were joking in the back seat, laughing about Bigfoot and haunted houses. Normal kid stuff. But when they pulled up to the house, it was pitch black, not like lights off dark, like abandoned dark. The homes on either side had porch lights and glowing windows. But this one, nothing. Like the whole house was asleep. Or worse, she double-checked the address. Everything matched. She told the boys to stay close and used her phone as a flashlight. When she opened the front door, cold air poured out like the house had been sealed shut for days. It smelled musty, like wet wood and something sour. The lights didn't work. None of them. She texted the host. After 5 long minutes, he replied, "Power cuts happen all the time. Wait it out, not helpful, not comforting." Michelle didn't want to freak the kids out, but she wasn't about to let them sit in a dead house alone. So she grabbed them both and went outside to find the fuse box. It was tucked behind the trash bins. She opened it. No blown switches. Everything looked normal. Inside, she locked the door again and did a full sweep of the house. Every room. Every closet. Her hands were shaking, but she didn't let it show. She tried calling the local police station, no answer. Tried a few other numbers, all dead. Even 911 wouldn't connect, so they waited, sat in the living room with just her phone flashlight. She told the boys to lay down and rest, but she stayed awake by the window all night. At some point, she heard footsteps. Slow, heavy, just outside the gate. She held her breath. Nothing moved. No one knocked, no car. Just those steps, and then silence. In the morning, Mason looked at her and said, "I didn't think we'd make it through the night." And she believed him. A power company worker showed up around 9 a.m. He said a transformer had blown out in the area, but it was fixed now. Said the homeowner could have called any time. While he spoke, Michelle noticed something on the screen door. A cross, small and wooden, hanging upside down. She packed their bags before the guy even left. They were out of there by noon, and she swears so do the boys. Someone watched them that night. Not from the house, from outside.